The grand hall of the Interstellar Council gleamed under 100 artificial suns, casting long, cold shadows across the polished obsidian floor. Species from every corner of the galaxy had gathered, their bodies strange, beautiful, terrifying, a kaleidoscope of eyes, wings, scales, and tentacles. At the center of it all, the High Chancellor Erevan, his voice resonant and sharp, declared the edict that would set the stars ablaze. "Humanity," he said, letting the syllables stretch like thunder across the chamber, "has violated the treaties of the 100 systems. Their arrogance, their expansion, their indifference to the sacred pacts of cosmic stewardship cannot stand. We declare war." A ripple of gasps, clicks, and harmonic vibrations passed through the room. Eyes narrowed, mandibles clicked, wings folded in silent judgment. Humanity, for all its fragile form and chaotic history, had never faced anything like this. Not the cold void, not the silent storms of dying worlds, not even themselves with all their failures and contradictions. And yet, Earth remained calm. On a quiet morning in New York, beneath a sky brushed with the orange of dawn, Captain Elias Ward sipped his coffee, staring out at the skyline with a strange serenity. The news alerts flickered across screens in the command center. Council declares war on humanity. Immediate preparations advised. Elias set his cup down. His mind was not racing, nor was it panicked. He felt the weight of the moment as one might feel the weight of a familiar book in hand, serious but entirely manageable. Humanity had faced extinction before, nuclear winters, climate collapse, pandemic plagues, and each time they endured. Each time they adapted. Beside him, Dr. Leora Vance, the lead strategist for the United Earth Coalition, leaned against the console, her brow furrowed. "They're not bluffing," she said softly. "The Council they don't declare war lightly." Elias smiled, a small human smile. "Maybe not, but they've also never seen us at our best." Meanwhile, billions of kilometers away, the Council's fleet of luminescent ships assembled in rigid formations, shimmering like frozen rivers of light. They spoke to each other in frequencies humans could not hear, coordinating attacks, planning strategies that had been refined over millennia. Every species present in the Council was confident. Every species, that is, except the one that had survived against impossible odds before, humanity. The news traveled fast, not just on Earth, but across every human colony scattered through the stars. Yet there was no panic. Families hugged a little tighter, yes, and children asked questions that adults answered honestly but calmly. Humanity's first instinct was never to flee. It was to understand, to plan, to create. On the orbital station above Mars, Commander Naomi Calder looked down at the red plains stretching endlessly below. She traced the familiar curves of valleys and craters and whispered a silent promise. Humanity would not be cowed. Not by lasers, not by fleets of incomprehensible power, not even by the combined wrath of the Council itself. The Council, back in their obsidian hall, watched the first human transmissions with growing unease. A single broadcast from Earth, simple and unadorned, reached every corner of the galaxy. A human woman, standing in a field under the morning sun, smiling directly into the camera. "Hello?" she said. Her name was Amara Selwyn. Her voice carried the warmth of sunlight and the weight of every human who had ever endured. "We know you are upset. We know you are powerful. But war is not our first choice. Let us talk. Let us show you who we really are. Let us rewrite the script together." The hall fell silent. Not with fear, not with respect, but with uncertainty. The Council had never expected diplomacy to be delivered like this. Not a plea, not a surrender, but a quiet, unwavering assertion that humanity would not be intimidated. And for the first time that day, doubt entered the hearts of beings who had ruled entire systems with absolute certainty. Somewhere, far from the obsidian towers and interstellar fleets, the humans simply prepared, not for war, not for revenge, but for the possibility that their calm, their ingenuity, and their relentless hope might change the course of history entirely. And perhaps, just perhaps, it already had. The Council expected fear. They expected panic. They did not expect quiet, methodical preparation. On Earth, the cities were alive, not with the chaos of mass hysteria, but with purpose. Engineers, artists, farmers, and children all moved with a sense of urgent clarity. Humanity did not panic. They recalibrated. They adapted. In London, Dr. Leora Vance stood before a holographic map of the solar system. Lines of light connected planets, moons, and orbital stations, showing not just positions but potential pathways for evacuation, defense, and diplomacy. Her hands moved over the map with the confidence of someone who had spent years imagining the unimaginable. "Elias," she said, her eyes scanning the calculations. "If we deploy the quantum communication relays as I suggested, we can transmit counter-strategies in real time. The Council won't see it coming." Elias Ward, leaning casually against the console, chuckled. "They're expecting fear. They're expecting chaos. What they're not expecting is humans thinking 3 steps ahead while smiling at a sunrise." Beyond the inner sanctums of strategy, humanity was showing its resilience in ways that did not rely on weaponry. Amara Selwyn, the woman whose calm voice had unsettled the Council, traveled across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, speaking to millions in crowded squares and empty towns alike. She did not rally armies. She told stories. Stories of survival, of loss, of small triumphs that had saved civilizations more than once. In the deserts of North Africa, a young engineer named Kiran Das built modular shelters that could withstand extremes of heat and radiation. In the icy reaches of Antarctica, biologists developed algae systems capable of producing both food and breathable air in sealed environments. Across the globe, humans were creating not just defenses, but resilience, the kind the Council had never encountered. Meanwhile, in orbit, Commander Naomi Calder oversaw the construction of the Sentinel fleet. It was not a fleet of brute force, but of ingenuity, sleek, modular ships that could repair themselves, adapt to enemy technology, and vanish into asteroid belts or magnetic storms. Every human pilot trained not just in combat, but in problem-solving under impossible conditions. Every ship was a testament to human adaptability, yet the Council, watching from their obsidian hall, remained confident. High Chancellor Erevan spoke with the cold precision of a species that had ruled the stars for millennia. "They prepare, yes, but they are fragile. Their bodies are weak. Their minds, though clever, will break under pressure. Their ships are toys next to our armadas. They cannot withstand us, and yet doubt had already begun to gnaw at some members. How could a species so seemingly fragile, prone to emotion, prone to mistakes, face the Council without crumbling? And why, despite all their preparations, did they seem almost serene? In a hidden laboratory on the Moon, a team of human scientists unveiled Project Lumen, a network of satellites capable of projecting holographic images and signals across light years. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense, but a declaration. Humanity could communicate, inspire, and influence on a scale no one had ever imagined. When the first holographic projection reached the Council chamber, it was not of ships or lasers. It was of human life itself. Forests swaying, children laughing, oceans sparkling under sunlit skies. Amara Selwyn's voice carried with it the same calm warmth as before. "You see us as weak. You see us as predictable. You are wrong. We survive not because we destroy, but because we endure. We innovate, we care. And even if we must defend ourselves, we will not become monsters in the process. That is what makes us human." A murmur ran through the Council. Some beings recoiled. Others tilted their heads, trying to understand this unexpected display. The humans were not threatening in the traditional sense, they were undeniable. Back on Earth, Elias sipped his coffee again, watching the sunrise over New York. Beside him, Leora Vance smiled quietly. "They think they can intimidate us," she said softly. "They're about to learn that intimidation is a language we—" "Don't speak," Elias nodded. "No, Leora. They're about to learn that humans rewrite the script, calmly, thoughtfully, and when the time comes, brilliantly." Somewhere in the cosmos, the Council realized that war was no longer a simple concept. Humanity had already started reshaping the battlefield, not with violence, but with resilience, ingenuity, and the strange, unquantifiable power of hope. And in that calm, steady light, the first real question emerged. Could the most fragile species in the galaxy, armed only with determination and wit, change the destiny of the stars? The answer was beginning to take shape. The void between stars is silent, yet it hums with the tension of what is about to unfold. Humanity's first encounter with the Council's fleet was not heralded by alarms or frantic commands. It was marked by quiet observation, patience, and a strange sense of anticipation. Commander Naomi Calder's ship, Aegis, drifted just beyond the outer perimeter of the Council's armada. Its hull reflected the distant sun, sleek and silent. Calder leaned over the observation deck, her eyes steady, her hands loose at her sides. Every human aboard felt the same strange calm, as if standing at the edge of a cliff and knowing the wind would hold them. "Signals incoming," reported Lieutenant Rafi Tanaka, tapping at the console. "They're opening communications channels." "It looks dramatic, very dramatic," Calder allowed a small smile. "Of course they are. Overconfidence has always been their first mistake." Across the void, the Council's fleet shimmered like a living constellation, ships aligned in precise, rigid formations. High Chancellor Erevan's voice echoed through the channels, grandiose and deliberate. "Humans of Earth, you have been judged, and your sentence is war. Submit or be erased from the stars." The Council expected terror. They expected chaos. What they received instead was silence. Then came the reply, transmitted not with arrogance, not with fury, but with deliberate serenity. Amara Selwyn's holographic figure appeared within the Council's viewing chamber, standing in a sunlit field on Earth, her eyes steady, her voice unwavering. "We hear your declaration," she said simply, "but war is not the only option. We offer dialogue, understanding. And if conflict must come, know this: we fight not to destroy but to endure, and humanity has endured against odds far greater than any you can muster." The Council paused. Ships hummed with low-frequency vibrations as generals whispered in alien tongues. Some members felt a flicker of unease, though none admitted it openly. Meanwhile, on the human side, Calder coordinated a series of maneuvers that were almost impossible to anticipate. Ships glided through asteroid fields, vanishing only to reappear behind Council vessels. Each move was precise, deliberate, and non-lethal, but entirely disorienting. Lieutenant Tanaka laughed softly, disbelief mingling with admiration. "It's like they're dancing." "And we're leading." "Yes," Calder said, her voice quiet but firm, "and they won't see it until it's too late." The first Council cruiser attempted to fire, its energy beams cutting across empty space. The Aegis and its fleet did not retaliate. Instead, they mirrored the attack, projecting light and sound in a choreography that confused sensors and scrambled targeting systems. The Council's ships faltered. Their formations wavered. On Earth, Amara's voice continued through the universal translators. "You see humans as fragile, as chaotic, yet we act with intention, with foresight. You prepare to destroy us, but we prepare to endure, and in the process show you who we truly are." Across the stars, tension built like a storm. The Council realized that these humans were unlike any adversary they had faced. They did not react with panic. They did not respond with blind aggression. Every human movement, every decision, was deliberate, measured, and astonishingly effective. High Chancellor Erevan's jaw tightened. "They are adaptive, rapidly adaptive. They anticipate our strategies before we even implement them." Calder's fleet, meanwhile, executed a final elegant maneuver. Ships split, merged, and projected holographic decoys across the battlefield. Council commanders found themselves aiming at illusions, miscalculating distances, and doubting the reliability of their own instruments. In the Human Command Center on Mars, Dr. Leora Vance observed the battle with a mixture of satisfaction and quiet pride. "They think war is about power," she said. "But for humans, war is also a test of creativity. And we excel at creativity." For the first time, the Council felt something unfamiliar: hesitation. Their precision, their centuries of domination, was no match for human ingenuity and calm determination. They were powerful, yes, but the humans were unpredictable in the most unsettling way. And through it all, humanity remained serene. They did not gloat. They did not rage. They simply executed their plans with elegance, patience, and ingenuity. As the first encounter ended without a single human casualty, Amara Selwyn's voice echoed across the void once more. "We do not fight for conquest. We do not fight for dominance. We fight because we endure. And in doing so, we invite you to see us, not as prey, not as a threat, but as equals in the infinite dance of the stars." High Chancellor Erevan, silent for the first time in centuries, felt a cold ripple of doubt. Perhaps humanity was not to be broken. Perhaps they were something else entirely. And in that silent recognition, the seeds of a far greater struggle, one of minds, hearts, and resilience, were planted. The Council had declared war dramatically. Humanity had rewritten the script calmly. The Council had expected war to be a simple declaration. They had expected fear, chaos, and surrender. But what they faced instead was a revelation, a species that responded with calm intelligence, with precision that was almost alien in its own right. High Chancellor Erevan paced the central chamber of the Council's flagship, its walls reflecting the brilliance of 1,000 distant suns. Every projection, every display told the same story. The humans were not only surviving, they were dictating the pace, rewriting the rules without striking a single blow. Have we underestimated them? Asked Councillor Varel, her multifaceted eyes narrowing. They are adapting faster than we can anticipate. Yes, Erevan admitted, voice low and almost uncharacteristic in its tone. And it terrifies me. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity did not celebrate their small victories. They never did. There was no boast, no triumphalism. Captain Elias Ward walked among his people, observing their work. Engineers were reinforcing orbital stations. Scientists were recalibrating communication satellites. Children were learning not in fear but in curiosity, designing small drones, building models of new propulsion systems, imagining what humanity could become. Beside him, Dr. Leora Vance watched quietly. They think power is measured in ships and weapons, but we know it's measured in ideas, in courage, in the willingness to endure and to create. Elias nodded. And that's something they can't destroy. Across the void, the Council's fleets attempted a new strategy, intimidation through presence. Their armadas moved like shadows across starfields, massive, gleaming, overwhelming. Their energy cannons hummed with deadly potential. They broadcasted holograms of entire destroyed human colonies trying to incite fear. But humanity remained. Composed on Mars, Commander Naomi Calder coordinated a subtle countermeasure. Human fleets created light distortions, bending the Council's projections into harmless illusions. Sensors misread positions. Beams of energy that should have obliterated human ships passed harmlessly through empty space. And all the while, Calder's pilots executed maneuvers with the calm of dancers, their focus unbroken. In orbit above Earth, Amara Selwyn addressed the Council again. Her holographic image shimmered against the black backdrop of space. You assume fear will weaken us. It does not. You assume aggression will force us to surrender. It will not. You assume your history of dominance applies here. It does not. Humanity survives not by imitating your power, but by transcending it. The chamber grew silent. Even the most experienced generals, the commanders who had never known defeat, could not reconcile what they were seeing. This was not resistance in the form of conflict. They were witnessing a new form of strategy. Patience, intelligence, and moral clarity. The humans were moving without haste, thinking without panic, acting without violence. Councillor Varel's voice trembled slightly. If they refuse to play by the rules we know, then what? Erevan's gaze hardened. Then we will learn a new set of rules, or fail trying. On Earth, Elias Ward and Leora Vance convened with the leaders of every human colony. Their strategy was not just about survival. It was about sending a message. The humans would not be cowed. They would not respond with destruction. They would prove that ingenuity, cooperation, and calm perseverance were as formidable as any weapon. And so, humanity began to act. Not with fleets of lasers or storms of missiles, but with networks of influence, with demonstrations of unassailable resilience, with calculations and experiments that left the Council unsure of even what constituted attack and defense. Every step, every move was a lesson in human adaptability. In the Council chamber, Erevan observed the transmissions with a grim fascination. Each broadcast from Earth revealed a species working together, improvising, creating solutions where there seemed to be none. Each human voice, each calm, steady gesture, communicated a quiet truth. They could not be intimidated. Perhaps we misjudged them entirely, Varel whispered, almost to herself. Yes, Erevan said, eyes fixed on the hologram of Amara Selwyn, standing under a rising sun. And perhaps that is the mistake that will cost us everything. Somewhere in the depths of space, human fleets moved like shadows in light, preparing not for annihilation, but for understanding. They did not strike first. They did not provoke. They simply demonstrated that humanity was not a species to be ruled by fear. The Council, for the first time, realized that their war was not being fought with weapons alone. It was being fought in the minds of the humans, in their unshakable calm, in their capacity to endure and innovate beyond all expectation. And the humans, serene as ever, continued their work, rewriting the script that the Council had assumed was already written. The Council had prepared for fear. They had prepared for chaos. They had not prepared for calm. They had not prepared for ingenuity. They had not prepared for humanity. Across the void, the Council's armadas shimmered with a terrifying precision. They had amassed fleets that could obliterate planets, fleets that could turn star systems into ash in moments. High Chancellor Arivon had expected victory, and yet, each move of the humans undermined his confidence. On Mars, Commander Naomi Calder stood before her officers, pointing to the holographic display of the Council fleet. "Notice their formations," she said softly. "Rigid, predictable. They rely on intimidation because they cannot imagine a species acting without panic. That is our advantage." Her words were met with nods. Every human pilot understood. The Council's strength lay in control, in fear, in expectation. Humanity's strength lay in creativity, in adaptation, in seeing possibilities where none existed. And so they acted, not with brute force, but with brilliance. The first maneuver was subtle. Human fleets scattered through asteroid fields using natural formations as camouflage. They projected decoy signals that suggested massive armadas in locations where no ships existed. The Council, confident in their calculations, fired preemptively and found only empty voids. Sensors overloaded, targeting systems scrambled, and doubt crept further into the minds of their commanders. Lieutenant Rafi Tanaka laughed quietly as she adjusted her controls. "It's almost like they're chasing ghosts." "Not ghosts," Calder replied. "We're showing them the limits of their own certainty." On Earth, the psychological campaign unfolded simultaneously. Amara Selwyn and her team sent broadcasts directly to Council populations, showing humans rebuilding damaged habitats, rescuing displaced families, and solving problems that seemed impossible. Every display was calm, confident, precise. Every broadcast carried the quiet, undeniable message: humanity endures and thrives. The Council's generals were bewildered. Some began to question their orders. Could a species so fragile, so small in scale, really possess such unshakable ingenuity? Could they understand the depth of human coordination, the harmony between intellect and morality, that turned survival into an art form? In orbit above Saturn, Calder executed the next phase. Human ships began creating adaptive holographic barriers, light and energy that bent perception, making the Council's attacks seem misdirected, even self-defeating. Ships that should have been destroyed vanished. Communications were intercepted and subtly rerouted to show the Council false outcomes, all carefully calculated to confuse and frustrate without ever harming life. On Earth, Leora Vance monitored the chaos from a quiet command center. "They're trying to impose certainty on an uncertain universe," she said. "We're simply teaching them that uncertainty can be beautiful." And then came the boldest move. The humans projected not illusions of fleets or weapons, but of ideas, algorithms, art, mathematics, philosophy, across Council systems. Entire populations of alien species saw what humans were capable of: innovation, creativity, collaboration, and compassion in ways that challenged the very notion of superiority. High Chancellor Arivon watched, his eyes narrowing. The Council's war machine, built for domination and destruction, faltered not because of the humans' lack of fear, but because of their unwavering resolve, their unparalleled adaptability, their refusal to be predictable. Councillor Varel whispered to him, her voice tense. "They are rewriting the rules of engagement. This is not war as we know it." "No," Arivon admitted, a rare note of humility in his tone. "This is something else. Something extraordinary." In the midst of the void, human fleets moved with elegance, efficiency, and clarity. They avoided unnecessary confrontation. They revealed their strength only when necessary. Every action, every choice was deliberate and measured. The Council's armadas, once symbols of unquestionable power, seemed cumbersome, almost clumsy by comparison. And yet the humans never gloated. They never taunted. Their victory, small but significant, was quiet. almost imperceptible, but it was undeniable. Amara Selwyn's voice echoed across the stars once more, calm as the dawn. We do not conquer. We do not destroy. We endure, we create, we adapt. And in showing you who we are, perhaps you will see yourselves more clearly as well. For the first time, doubt was no longer a flicker. It had become a storm. The Council realized that this war could not be won through fear, intimidation, or overwhelming firepower alone. Humanity had turned the tide, not with violence, but with clarity, resilience, and the extraordinary power of their spirit. And somewhere across countless light years, the Council began to understand a terrifying truth. They were not facing a species to defeat. They were witnessing the emergence of a force that could change the very rules of existence itself. The Council had declared war dramatically. Humanity had rewritten the script brilliantly. The Council had expected battle. They had expected chaos. They had expected fear, but they had not expected understanding. For the first time in millennia, a species forced the Council to pause, to question, to reconsider the very assumptions upon which their dominance rested. The humans had survived the first encounter, turned their strategies back upon them, and now, even in the vast silence of space, a different kind of war was emerging, a war of perception, of values, of spirit. High Chancellor Erevan sat before the central viewing array, his glowing eyes tracing the intricate dance of human fleets, their movements elegant, deliberate, precise. He felt a strange, unfamiliar tension, the first real doubt of his long life. Councillor Varel's voice broke the silence. They do not act as other species do. They do not fight for conquest. They do not fight for survival alone. They fight to endure, to create, to prove that life itself can be more than power and dominance. Yes, Erevan admitted, almost to himself, and in doing so they are showing us something dangerous, something we cannot predict, something we may never understand fully. Across Earth, Amara Selwyn addressed billions, not with commands or orders, but with clarity and warmth. We do not seek to destroy. We do not seek to dominate, but we will not be cowed. We will not hide. We will endure, adapt, and inspire, and perhaps in doing so, we can show others, your species, our neighbors, even the Council, that there is a different way to exist in the cosmos. Her words traveled light years, reaching every Council system. Species that had long relied on intimidation and fear paused, questioned, and listened. Doubt rippled like a silent tide. On Mars, Commander Naomi Calder coordinated the next phase. Human fleets moved with astonishing synchronicity, not to strike but to demonstrate resilience and strategy. They mapped uncharted systems, created sustainable colonies, and projected holographic simulations of human ingenuity. Cities that could thrive under extreme conditions. Energy systems that harnessed stellar flares. Algorithms that solved problems before they became crises. Every projection was a lesson. Every maneuver was a message. Humanity did not need to destroy to prove its worth. Their existence, their clarity, their unshakable spirit was enough. Inside the Council's flagship, murmurs grew. High-ranking generals, once certain of inevitable victory, now debated openly. Could a species survive purely through ingenuity and moral clarity? Could they reshape conflict itself by refusing to be reduced to pawns in a war of fear? Varel's eyes flickered. Perhaps this is what evolution has been preparing them for all along. Not strength alone, but creativity. Not aggression, but perseverance. Not destruction, but adaptation. Erevan's fingers brushed the console. And perhaps, he said quietly, this is the first time we've truly seen life in its full potential. Back on Earth, Elias Ward stood with Leora Vance, gazing at the distant stars. They'll try to strike again, he said, voice calm but firm. They always do. But what they don't understand is that humans aren't fighting like them. We're fighting for something bigger, something enduring, something that can't be destroyed by lasers or fleets or fear. Leora nodded. We're showing them what it means to be human, to survive without surrendering our principles, to create while under pressure, to endure with clarity and grace. And across the cosmos, the Council realized they had misjudged humanity in the most fundamental way. They were not fragile. They were not weak. They were not predictable. Humanity's strength lay not in weapons, not in speed, not in numbers, but in something far more profound. resilience, intelligence, and the unshakable belief that life could be beautiful even in the face of annihilation. High Chancellor Erevan exhaled, the first genuine pause in centuries of command. Perhaps, he whispered, the war we declared was never about humans. Perhaps it is about us, about understanding that strength can take forms we have never imagined. And in that quiet recognition, a new possibility emerged, that humanity, calm and unwavering, could not only survive the Council's wrath but transform it, that in their steadfast resilience, they might teach even the greatest powers of the galaxy something profound, about hope, about perseverance, about the extraordinary potential of life itself. The Council had declared war dramatically. Humanity had rewritten the script masterfully. And now, for the first time, the Council wondered if the humans had already won. The Council's armadas, once the embodiment of unstoppable power, drifted in the void like statues frozen in uncertainty. Their weapons hummed, their sensors scanned. But the humans moved with a serenity that no technology could mimic, no fleet could break. On Earth, the morning sky was ablaze with light, not the light of war, but the light of resolve. Captain Elias Ward stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean, the wind lifting his hair as he watched the sun rise. Beside him, Dr. Leora Vance held a tablet showing the latest transmissions to the Council. Humans solving problems, building communities, extending hands instead of fists. They're waiting for us to react, Elias said softly, a small smile touching his lips. But we've been doing more than reacting. We've been teaching. Teaching that power is not in destruction but in creation. That strength is not in domination, but in endurance. In orbit, Commander Naomi Calder coordinated fleets with quiet precision. Their movements were a ballet of strategy and adaptability, avoiding harm, confusing sensors, and showcasing human innovation. But more than that, the humans communicated a deeper message, one that could not be misinterpreted by force alone. Humanity's courage and creativity were limitless, bound only by their imagination and their compassion. Across the Council's vast flagship, High Chancellor Erevan studied the transmissions in silence. His advisors whispered theories, strategies, and contingency plans, but none contained the truth. This was not a conventional war. This was an encounter with a species that defied expectations, a species whose very existence was a challenge to the Council's assumptions. Councillor Virel leaned forward, her voice almost reverent. They are showing us that life can be more than conflict. That intelligence and morality together can create power unlike anything we have ever seen. Erevan nodded, his gaze fixed on the holographic image of Amara Selwyn standing under the sun on Earth. Her eyes were steady, her expression calm, yet her presence radiated strength. They have rewritten the rules, he whispered, not through fear, not through destruction, but by being themselves. On Earth, Amara Selwyn addressed the galaxy one final time. Her voice carried across light years, reaching every council system, every planet, every listening species. We have survived because we endure. We have thrived because we create. And now we offer a choice, not surrender, not conquest, but understanding. Join us in a future where life is measured not by power, but by resilience, by ingenuity, by compassion. Let us rewrite the script of the stars together. For a long moment, silence reigned across the void. The Council's fleets halted. Their armadas, designed to obliterate worlds, did nothing. The galaxy seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. And then a quiet acknowledgement emerged. Not all species understood immediately, not all accepted, but many did. They saw the humans, not as weak, not as chaotic, not as threats, but as a reminder of what life could aspire to be. And in that recognition, an entirely new era began. Back on Earth, Elias Ward felt the weight lift from the universe itself. Humanity had not struck a blow. They had not sought vengeance. They had simply endured, adapted, and revealed the extraordinary strength that lay in their calm minds and compassionate hearts. Commander Calder whispered over the comms to every fleet, her voice serene. We did not win by force. We won by being human, and now,
the stars are ours to rewrite. Amara Selwyn smiled, looking up at the sky.
We did not fight to conquer. We fought to show that life itself can rise above fear, that even against the greatest powers in the galaxy we remain humanity. High Chancellor Erevan, observing the humans for the last time before retreating to council deliberations, felt a profound shift within himself. They had not only survived, they had taught. They had transformed the galaxy not by weapons, but by the essence of who they were. And in that quiet, enduring truth, the story of humanity became legend, not for battles won, not for planets conquered, but for a species that faced the greatest power in the universe and responded, not with rage, not with despair, but with calm, unwavering brilliance. The Council had declared war dramatically. Humanity had rewritten the script entirely, and the stars themselves seemed to glow a little brighter for it.